Hey friends, welcome back to Hey Wait. If you've ever said to yourself, I've done the work, I've read the books, I've been to therapy, and I understand my patterns, but deep down you still feel stuck or broken, this episode is for you. Because what if the thing that's keeping you from the wholeness you're craving isn't a lack of insight, but a lack of integration? My guest today is Maira Holzmann. Maira is a licensed somatic therapist, speaker, and the founder of Somatic Therapy Partners in Denver, where she helps people who are stuck in survival mode despite years of, quote, doing the work, actually start to feel free again. Her specialty is helping you get out of your head and back into relationship with your body and with your aliveness. And through her signature 2-week rebonding process, Maira brings together somatic therapy, spiritual integration, co-regulating touch, and psychedelic-informed work to help people not just talk about transformation, but actually experience it. And let me tell you, this is a woman who walks her talk. Maira and I share a kindred winding path, one that's wound through mountains, through unconventional work, and through devotion to both science and spirit. And I think you'll feel this mixture of wildness and groundedness, and also passion and boldness in her presence. What I love most about Maira's work and why I wanted her on this podcast is that she doesn't pathologize stuckness. She gets that healing isn't linear, and that when your body has learned that it's not safe to soften, your survival patterns don't let go just because you understand them. This episode is an invitation into what happens when you finally say, hey, wait, maybe I don't need more answers. Maybe I just need to come home to myself. We're going to talk about the nervous system and embodiment, yes, but also about how healing is a reclamation of yourself, of your joy, and of your capacity to be in your body now without bracing. So let's get into it. Hello, Maira. We're doing it.
We're doing it. Hi, Jay Moonfield. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm thrilled to have you here. This is really the first time that we've ever sat down together, but it doesn't feel like that because when I started looking at who you are and what you're up to, I was like, oh, this woman is up to, yeah. It's like we've got similar paths, similar passions.
We do.
And I'm really interested to hear more about how your specific expression of this somatic work and how you work with people to help them be more integrated. Right. And I'm sure we're going to get into all those somatic
geekiness all the good stuff
at some point. But the place I want to start, Maira, because you have this one line on your bio that I think a lot of people would read over, and I did not, because I was like, this is so uncommon to see in someone else's story. It's part of my story. You have such a great term for it. You said you called your years of living wild and close to the earth. And this was you in your 20s.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about what that experience was like for you. And the curiosity I hold about it is, was it something that at the time was a conscious seeking of healing or integration, or were you just like flying by the seat of your pants?
I was flying by the seat of my pants as a 21-year-old who had just graduated from Michigan and was like, I'm going to move to Seattle on a whim. And I got a job at the North Face, so I got to buy all my gear. Mm-hmm. And from there, I did a lot of climbing and mountaineering because I wanted to be an instructor for either National Outdoor Leadership School or Outward Bound. And then it turned into a 10-year history with Outward Bound, traveling around the world, teaching people how to mountaineer and be good stewards of nature. So it was me flying by the seat of my pants. Little did I know how healing that would be for me to land in my authentic self and become who I was really meant to be outside the confines of my parents' expectations, of, internalized expectations from people around me, and really live boldly, because that's kind of how I'm wired, like having an adventurous spirit at that level, or I'm living 6 months and I'm literally living outside, teaching people how to mountaineer and to climb and to canoe and all these kinds of things, and then spending the other 6 months being a ski bum. I mean, that's deep nature. That's deep trust in myself that, like, I don't have any money, but I'm living my best life right now. And that kind of wiring in the body is priceless.
Absolutely. It is. I had a very similar experience being a rock climbing guide and a backpacking guide and working, doing wilderness rites of passage. And it is, I don't take people out on the land anymore in my work. Every once in a while, if someone travels to me one-on-one, I'll do that and I love it. But it is so threaded through everything that I do. And I look back on that as going, I don't know that I knew that I was consciously seeking the mirroring of nature to heal. But it certainly did heal me on so many levels. So I wonder if you could speak to also, like, so you were flying by the seat of your pants, but did you have a background in being in nature? What called you to to go work for Knowles and Outward Bound and be out in the wilds is a big step for anybody.
For anybody, even just doing like a course, much less like living it, most of the time. So the question was,
good question, right? The question is, did you have a background in wilderness, like being outdoors? And if so, or even if not, what called you to it? Did you have a sense it was healing?
Yeah, so no background in that. I mean, my parents are immigrants. I'm an immigrant, so I landed here in America when I was 2 years old from the Philippines and grew up with parents who are very traditional Filipinos. So they wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer or a teacher. And we went on maybe one camping vacation the whole time that I was living with my parents from like 0 to 18. So interestingly, so when I was at Michigan, I rushed. So what that means is I tried to get into the Greek social system, and the person that was right in front of me told me all about National Outdoor Leadership School and how she had just spent the summer 30 days in the Wind River Range. And I was like, what is that? What are you like?
Different planet.
And somehow I just kind of knew that was the thing I needed to do. Like, it was enough to tell me, like, whatever she told me was enough for me to like research it and get on the path. And I've also been embodied my whole life, but also an athlete. So it kind of just made sense for me to be as athletic as I was and to want to channel getting paid by playing in the mountains. Like, that's always been my goal, is how can I get paid to play, quite frankly, like play with other people, like play with whatever. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to turn off this thing. And so I didn't really know the healing potential in it. And the main the main thing I got out of that was a foundation, because I did that for 10 years. I did that in Colorado, South Africa, and then a lot in California in the Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park. But what I got out of it was like a sense of self-esteem that I really needed, that I didn't have. Like, I didn't have a true, solid sense of self. Like, I had all of these sort of like machinations around it, but I ended up being really good at facilitating groups. I was really good at risk assessment out in the mountains, like, mountaineering and whatever. And I needed to have that sort of core level of like, I'm good at something. I'm successful. People like me, because I didn't have that experience growing up with my parents, who were pretty intense, and also growing up, not really fitting into the social circle that I was surrounded in at my school. So I left that career with much more clarity about what I wanted to do in graduate school. So 10 years after I started, I went to graduate school at the age of 30 or 31. And also just like an embedded sense of confidence that no matter what, I could figure something out. And that mindset, that way of being embodied, has led to everything that I've ever done from that point forward. So it was huge time for me. I call it like cutting my teeth and like getting to know who I really, really was, and then setting me on the path much more intentionally around healing.
I can absolutely relate to everything you're saying, and that experience of being a leader in the wilderness. There's nothing like it in terms of being able to be. You were using your hands for people who are just listening and can't see. Maira, there's this sense of like, this is my center. This is my nature. This is my nature. And and that claiming then being a root for everything else. So at what point did you learn about somatic experiencing and like the science of embodiment?
Yeah. So I'd already completed grad school and had been working for 2 years. And quite frankly, I didn't start. I heard about somatic experiencing from a colleague, and then I worked with a somatic experiencing practitioner, and I couldn't get my head around it. Like, I didn't understand why she kept asking me about my body and to feel things, because I was so intellectual and cognitive at that time. And so I stopped working with her. And then a year after I stopped working with her, I finally attended a training. And I was like, oh, that's why she was asking me all these questions about slowing down. Like, what do you notice happening in your body is one of the most basic questions in the field of somatics. And as soon as I understood that it was really about embodiment, because I always think of myself as very embodied and earthbound, like I'm very connected to the earth. I'm not up here sort of living, and I'm not, sort of like all over the place. I understood that this was my path, and that path led to, again, like another sort of foundation of everything that I'm currently doing in my life, from medicine journeys to therapeutic touch work to running a practice and mentoring new clinicians who want to learn about how to become a somatic therapist. So it was a really pivotal moment, and I'd gotten just 2 sources of input to get me there to that training, and then I completed the training and just kept taking more trainings consistently over the span of like 10 to 15 years.
As you're talking, I have the sense that you are someone that, for lack of a better way to talk about it, the way it feels to me is that you get like a ping, like something comes into your life and there's a resonance. There's like a ping, I want to go. That's the adventurous part of you, but it's also the embodied part of you, that in order to hear those callings or see those paths, you have to have some way to tune in.
Yeah, you have to have some way to listen to the feedback. I sometimes talk about it as whispers. This is what I say to my clients, like the body whispers until it has to yell. So if you're just working and working and working, eventually you're going to get sick, because that's your body yelling, going, you haven't listened to me. I told you to stop partying and staying up till 5 a.m. and doing all of these things, right? So yes, we're talking about somatic resonance. For me, it feels like first a sense of curiosity, like, oh, what's that? And then generally speaking, when something is resonant, like when I'm pinging something, and this also happens in my therapeutic touch work, there's an experience of like settling and clarity, right? It's like I come into my center and everything just becomes clear in my head and my shoulders drop away and I'm like, yeah, that. And then it's coupled with some level of excitement. So I have learned over the years, just to sort of cut to the chase, of like really listening to those signals, those intuitive hits that sometimes show up as somatic experiences. Other times it shows up as like me seeing something or me feeling something pretty big out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And then I just sort of keep following the sort of breadcrumbs of bliss. Like that's just what I have learned how to do.
Breadcrumbs of bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the thing, and I'm sure you know this, about being embodied is you have greater access to pleasure, joy, ease, meaningful connectedness, and warmth. So this is something I'm always trying to sell to my clients about. Here's the reason why you want to live in your body, sweetheart,
I do know. It's one of those things where it's like, how do you package this without sounding like a used car salesman? But at the same time, it's absolutely true. And I'm wondering, when people come to you, are they bought into the idea of, yes, I want to be more in my body, help me? Or, I mean, you have a somatic practice. It's called Somatic Partner or Somatic Therapy Partners.
Yep.
So obviously they know this is going to be body-based work. But, when people come to you, are they more like you were with the first practitioner, where you're like, why is she asking me about what I feel like?
Yeah. Yeah, so they're bought in cognitively. Like they know that they have, my ideal clients are the people that have tried all the forms of therapy and seen the shaman and gone to acupuncture and gotten the trainer, and they're like, yeah, and I've still got this itch I can't scratch. Like I still hate myself and I still am constantly beating myself up after I have an interaction with someone, reviewing it to figure out all the ways that I kind of mess it up, right?
Well, you and I say the same thing. I think we say it a little bit different, but essentially, if you could have figured it out by now, You would
You
have.
would have. If
You're
you could have
smart
thought your
enough.
way out
Yes.
of your trauma, you would not be at my door. So let's do something different. So my clients show up and they're like, yeah, let's do this. And then we start getting them into the work. And my job in all of the work I do, but especially around helping people heal from early trauma, is to help them find a portal into the body that is gentle and easy and small enough that they don't get super freaked out by all the things that they haven't felt, all of the traumas that they've experienced, all of their unmet needs. So that's always how it has to begin. People are bought in, but they're bought in conceptually, and then they start doing the work. And there's almost always this kind of moment of like, oh my God, I didn't know this was going on. And I'm like, yeah, you haven't breathed fully for the first 20 minutes of our session. So how about we just focus on really elongating and slowing down your exhale, which will get you right into your parasympathetic or love part of your nervous system. And then they get this immediate relief. Like I do this in a consult, like they get immediate relief from the thing that ails them, and then they're bought in. They're like, okay, there's something about including the body in the healing experience that starts to make sense for them. And then their resistance can go down.
And I think this is really important for the listener out there who has not experienced any kind of embodiment or somatic therapy, that what you said about you start with a piece that's so small that it can be accessed. Because I think for those of us, and I put myself in this category where it's like I'm really embodied in some ways, but before I found this work, I was really in my head when it came to my own trauma. That's right. I was embodied when it came to fun and adventure and exercise and physicality. Yeah. But when it came to my shit, I was like, let me show you the chaos that's in my mind. Yeah. And if you're in that space in your mind, the thought of getting into your body is like, oh gosh, I couldn't.
That's right.
That's what I want the listener to hear, is that when you're working with a trained person in this way, they're going to give you like the tiniest doorway.
That's right.
Just a little tiny one.
That's right.
Until you feel, oh, that's what that feels like.
Yeah.
And then you start.
And then you start, because it's way easier for someone to buy into something when you've shown them the thing versus taught them the thing. Right? So like I do a lot of teaching about the nervous system, about the parasympathetic, all of the things. And until they actually do the skill, whatever skill it is, and it gives them an immediate sense of relief, like, oh my God, I'm okay, or whatever, it's kind of hard to get the work started, because the intellectualizing and the mentalizing, which is often a defensive mechanism, necessarily keeps you out from feeling and listening into your body, sensing the true, like your whole self, versus just this mind, which is quite frankly very errant. It goes all over the place all of the time. It's like trying to herd cats, trying to get your mind to not do a certain thing.
Which is why someone's taken, done therapy and worked with all the shamans and all the things for 20 years, and they know better, but they can't do better.
They can't do better.
When I sent you questions before we met, one of the questions I asked you is, what's the unique strength or superpower that you have that helps you, that makes you great at your work? And you said something about your capacity for joy and authenticity. But the other thing you said in that was that capacity is what allows you to love your clients.
Yeah.
And I really loved that you said that, because I don't think a lot of people say that. Can you say more about loving your clients?
Yeah. So, in therapy school, in graduate school, they teach you how to have all these like really good boundaries, which are helpful. It's a good starting point. And, they teach you to have like emotional distance and to do all of these other things. And at the level that I'm working with clients, and what I mean by that is I work with all adults who have experienced some form of early trauma, which is defined as adverse and ongoing experiences that happen between the ages of 0 and 3, but really more like 0 and 10 and older. It's constant trauma, whether it's neglect, it's manipulation, it's physical abuse. And one of the things I've started saying recently, which, I'm sure my colleagues are going to sort of like give me the side eye for, is like, but I say this even to my clinicians that I'm mentoring, that I'm training. I'm like, listen, nobody needs more therapy, but you know what people need more of? They need to be loved more. They need to be loved where they're at. They need to be loved for their messiness. They need to be loved for their triumphs. And so if I can already come in where my field is full of love and it's emanating love that isn't detracting to me, where I'm not abandoning myself, that's real. I honestly believe that's why people come to see me. Like, I feel like that's why people stay. That's why people trust me when I say, hey, I think you should do this instead of this. I need you to do this homework. You're not quite showing up. And they do it because they feel my love for them and my care for them that isn't built on them being a good client. It's like, you're lovable no matter what. So let me just like role model that for you, what it's like, and also continue to push for getting out of these toxic patterns, these inherited patterns that literally don't serve you at all. So it's important to love your clients, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And I think, it's on some level what we're doing is we're parenting. We're a parent that's like, hey, no matter what you do, I'm going to love you. And I'm also going to kind of guide you over here, and I'm going to hold you up over here, and I'm going to say, hey, wait, that's not what you said,
Yeah.
But the love, whenever I do a discovery call with someone, the first time we have a conversation, there's so many things that I'm looking for in terms of, is this a good fit for me? And of course, they're looking at the same thing on their end. But one of the questions I'm asking myself is, can I love this person? Because if I can't, because, sometimes there's a chemistry thing and it's off and it's like, I don't think I'm this there. And sometimes I'll even tell them, like, I feel like you're a fit because I already feel care for you. And if I don't feel that, I can't help you.
It feels hard to show up in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved that you said allowing yourself to love your clients, because I absolutely think it is a giant ingredient in what is ultimately about relating.
Yes.
And if you're going to be in your body, and which is also a huge part of what the ingredient is, if you're going to be embodied and you're not exuding love, that's felt.
It's felt. It's felt even if they don't feel it. Even if it's so nuanced in their body, they're going to have an experience. And I have some clients that are super duper sensitive, and they will, not call me out when I'm not being like, it's not that they call me out, but it's like they have such a clear, and I help them figure this out. They have such a clear experience of what it's like to lean into our relationship, a very felt sense of like ease and flow and acceptance. And that, I have a lot of techniques. I have all the training, whatever. And love is kind of like the engine that pushes all of those techniques into fruition so that it comes to life in daily life every single day. So I'm with you. And I love that you asked the question, like, do I love this person? Am I already in the discovery call developing a sense of care for them? Right. And what I have found is that this way of being, like 90% of the time, attracts me my most ideal client, the person I most want to be working with. So I have a caseload full of all ideal clients, and it's pretty epic. It's amazing. And it's because I know how to love. And I also know how to be joyful and authentic and silly. I'm a trauma therapist. There's nothing light and fun and easy about that. So, like
that's
anytime,
the best though.
Like anytime we can laugh in a session and sort of make light of something, or just giggle about like the funny show that we both watched the night before. It's worth it, because it's also a break for the nervous system from the grind and the constriction and the brace patterns that are created when you grew up in unsafe environments.
Because it's an indication. If you're laughing, you're safe. Yeah,
that's right.
And it's a great way to just really gently model, hey, you're safe right now.
Yeah, we're safe. You and I are good here together. Like, you just laughed your face off and almost peed your pants. Like, I think you're doing pretty good.
Totally.
Yeah.
So in this show, we talk about hey, wait moments. And the hey, wait moment to me is moments where you pivot internally or externally to really ask to be considered. And I find that, what's common in our clientele is that all my clients have developmental trauma. That sense of not having been emotionally resonated with, not having been seen. So there's a lack of trust in their insides that they get to matter.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for you, for the person listening who needs a little inspiration for what does it look like for a normal person to what is one of your hey wait moments? This is a really poorly worded question to say.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a number of those kinds of moments, but the one that always stands out for me. So at the time, I think I had just turned 40. And we were living in Winter Park, Florida, which is just outside of Orlando. And I grew up relatively on the poor side. Like, you know, we were probably lower middle class, like lower class. My parents were immigrants and whatever. And I'd always had this thing about status and wealth. And I always wanted to be one of those people that had status and had wealth, because what I saw in my world is that the people that had status and wealth got more. They got more attention. They had more things. They seemed to have more fun, et cetera, et cetera. And I grew up in a family, I'm the oldest of three, where I never really felt a deep sense of belonging. And we know that belonging is one of the core felt sense experience that is the foundation for all humans to then thrive later in life. I didn't really have that with my family. And I'd been working on it. I mean, I'd been doing my own personal work and been doing healing work. And somehow I was driving through like the fancy downtown and this thought came in. So for me, sometimes things show up my awareness and they're not mine. It's not like something I've thought about. I call it a download. I think of it as like, oh, the universe is like, here you go. Here's a little wisdom. Just see if you catch it. So I'm driving through this downtown and all of a sudden I had this, like, it was like a neon sign and it said, I belong. And I was like, what's happening? You know, I hadn't been drinking or
like a literal neon sign,
like a literal neon sign in my head. And it was also a voice. It was like a whisper. It was like, I belong. And I looked around and I was like, yeah, I belong there and I belong there and I belong there. And I came home and I was like, it felt like this sudden sense of belonging to myself and in my own life that was so profound that I can talk about it today, because it was also a felt sense of like, oh my God, thank God I belong somewhere. Like I belong to myself. I belong to my own family. And it's one thing, and you know this as a somatic coach, but like, it's one thing to know something intellectually. It's like seeing a map of a place. And then it's a whole different thing when you feel that sense of belonging for me in my body, because now it's like, oh, here's the map, but now I'm actually in the terrain. Like I'm seeing all of the mountains and the rivers and the streams and the trees and all of these kinds of things. And something about that changed me. And so a few probably weeks after that, I'd had long hair my whole life. I got it all cut short. Like I had a super short haircut. My friends were like, what happened to you? When I moved back to Denver, it just became this series of things where, and you said this word earlier about like claiming yourself. When I got that embedded into my system, this neon sign and this whisper that was like, I belong, it started a chain of events where I started claiming myself and my power and my gifts and showing up in a bigger way. So it was a pretty big, like, hey, wait moment, but it was not triggered by anything. I was literally just like driving along and was like, you know, maybe my brain, you know, which is a transmitter and a receiver, was like finally like ready to receive that information. Because it had been, I mean, I'd been working on myself for 10 years prior to that point, doing all kinds of like talk therapy and, you know, this and that. And that was the moment that kind of changed everything. So that's my hey, wait moment.
Oh, I can feel it in me as you speak about it. And a couple of times you took deep breaths talking about it. And that kind of transmission or download is something that's so real in the moment. But what also, and you kind of spoke to this, what makes it so real is that however many years later this is now, it still is in you. Like it's there, it's real, it lodged itself in you. And I think that it's such a beautiful example of a hey, wait moment. Because like you said, you didn't make anything happen.
Nope.
It was an allowance. It was a receiving, and it stuck. And what I find interesting about then what happened after that is in the experience of belonging. And you said like, I belong somewhere, but really you belonged everywhere. Like you belonged everywhere. And in that experience, you got to be transformed into the purest version of yourself, because you were no longer, unconsciously or not, looking for like, will you be my mommy? You know, that whole thing that we do.
Yeah, that whole
like,
book, totally.
I'm just gonna, I mean, God, fuck, that was my life for years. Will you be my mommy? You know, like, will you love me?
Yes.
Well, is this who I need to be for you?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, you said something just a second ago that really landed for me. Let me see if I can remember it. If not, then we can move forward. But nope, not coming. If it comes back, I'll let you know. But it was really good. And I wish I could remember what you said, but
I trust you that it was good. It's in there. So you've talked about healing. A big part of your practice is healing intergenerational trauma.
yeah.
Do you have kids?
Yeah. So I have a 16-year-old daughter, and we just have one kid right now. I mean, forever. We're not having any more kids.
Right.
I don't know why I said that.
Is this
right
a
now.
reveal?
Yeah, as if like I'm going to have a kid later. Like I'm not going to have a kid later. So yes, I have a daughter.
And I'm assuming that, given who you are, that this embodiment of love and of healing and all of that your daughter has benefited from that, right? Like you're not giving her therapy, but do you see that translating into your own intergenerational?
Right. Yes. So the hugest, my daughter is my biggest teacher, bar none. And I remember as she started getting older, because I grew up with pretty strict parents who were physically abusive, emotionally manipulative, like you can sort of imagine what that might be like. And my parents were often kind of cruel in their interactions with me, like they really lacked empathy. I often joke that I had to go to grad school to learn about empathy because I didn't have a template for it in my body. There was just no sense of that in my growing up. Like, I never landed in the hospital, but they really didn't care how I felt. They didn't care that I was in my room crying over a breakup or, in abject terror because my dad was going to, come upstairs and like give me a talking to, and then I was going to get hurt. So my daughter has taught me how to be soft. And, one of the things as a sidebar but related that I've learned about being a clinician as long as I have is that if all people practice doing is softening their body when they're under duress, and I mean really like softening the gaze, like letting the mouth open a little bit, like softening the shoulder, softening the belly, softening the thighs, that gets you more than halfway there towards your healing process. Because most of trauma, not all of it, but a lot of trauma is built on somatic patterns of constriction and bracing. Right? The brace patterns happen. People are like, no, I'm totally relaxed. I'm like, yeah, but you can't feel all of your organs and you can't feel like the tightness of your veins and how it's constricting blood flow up to your brain, which is why you get headaches every single day or why you're clenching your jaw. Right? So my daughter taught me how to be soft because I grew up with pretty sharp, pretty like, like I'm going to tell it to you and I don't care if it's kind, you're going to hear about it. And, the other thing is that I didn't know what the vision of my practice was for 2 years after I opened it. And then I was like, oh, right, duh. The whole reason why I'm doing this is so that people can wake up and not pass on trauma to their own children, which is exactly what which is exactly what I was going to do if I'd never done any personal growth work, like no healing work. I would have been just as severe, just as,
Right. Because this comes back to what you were saying, like you're smart enough. If your intelligence could have helped you heal, it would have already done this. So this is what happens to loving, good parents all over the world all the time, which is there is good intentions. There's great levels of, even when there are good intentions and great levels of understanding, if the trauma patterns are still in the body, they will keep coming through. And that's with good intentions and a lot of knowledge and self-awareness.
That's right. It'll keep coming through. And your kids will pick it up whether you're saying the right thing, because your body won't be, like you can say all the kind right things, but if your body isn't behind it, it comes across as hollow or shallow or empty. Right. So over the 16 years that my daughter has been alive, it's been a constant, consistent and loving honing practice of how do I stay connected and meaningfully attuned to my daughter so that when all of a sudden I'm speaking very sharply to her and I watch her wither and kind of like fold and kind of do this and look away. It's like, ooh, Maira, like wake up. You need to just catch what's happening right now, intervene, repair, soften, apologize, and commit to not doing it again. In a nutshell of how you do a repair. And that has, I have one of my most favorite stories that I tell clients. I'll tell it to you really quickly. My daughter was 4 years old. My husband was out of town. I'd had a super long day. And for the first time ever in her whole life, she did something and I got upset and I was like, go to bed, no dinner for you. And I would never do that. Like, but I was so dysregulated by myself. So I know this little fact, I've heard this little fact that if you wait 20 minutes or longer when there's been a rupture in a relationship, that memory goes into long-term memory and starts to become a pattern in the body.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. 20 minutes. So
Whoa.
If there is a rupture in relationship, you want to fix that rupture in 20 minutes or less. So I'm sitting there going, oh, you just totally screwed it up with your kid. Like you're doing the thing that you would never do. Like you talk to her, right? So I get myself together. I come upstairs and I'm feeling so remorseful. And I open the door and you open the door and there's her bed. And she looks at me with her little 4-year-old self and she goes, I knew you would come. I know. She knew I would come and repair. She knew I would come and get her and not let her sit in distress all by her little 4-year-old self dealing with terror and I made my mom mad and am I lovable? Like all unconscious things because she had had enough experience with me.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And I was like, I did what you're doing. I just burst into tears. And I'm like, oh, good kid. I'm so glad you knew that I would come because I'm always going to come get you. And then we repaired and she had pancakes for dinner, you know what I mean? At like 9 o'clock at night, past her bedtime. And she always knows I'm going to come. She always knows it. Like even in small things, like I got really competitive playing a game with her on the beach. And she was just like, she just like stomped off. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of being a dick. And she's like, you were. And for a kid to be able to say that to a parent in that way is safety. That's right. You got it. And I was like, yeah, I was. I didn't need to be that way. I'm really sorry. You didn't deserve it. And then we just carried on with our day at the beach.
And so this is an example, listener, of what Hey Wait looks like on a day-to-day level. Yeah. It's the, hey, wait, I need to address what I just said to you. Hey, wait, I don't feel good about what just happened. It's, and those, you know, the big downloads like you got driving through the ritzy part of town, like those are capital H, hey, wait moments. But these little ones, they're what intimacy and health and healing and integration come from. Hey, wait, that thing 3 minutes ago I said, I need to take that back. I need to say something else. And
that's right.
So I'm also imagining right now that there's a listener who maybe has their own children and who has had those same moments and who didn't make the repair in the first 20 minutes or who is still yet to make the repair. And given what Maira just said a little bit ago, I want to offer you the opportunity to take this moment right now and try to soften. Just try to soften your throat, your shoulders, your chest. It is never too late to go back and make the repair. And if you hold in this, if you brace with this, if you make it harder than it already is, it just gets harder than it already is. So
that's it.
This is the invitation from, you've got two somatic coaches here, therapist and coach.
Yeah.
We're like, let's make some space right now for everyone listening to just practice softening your thighs, your toes, your nostrils.
That's it. Yeah. Soften your gaze. Like anything, all of those places are great. But when you really soften your face, so you invite your eyes to rest back in their orbs, you allow your mouth to gently open and your cheeks to unclench and your ears to open and take in sound, and for your skin to receive the temperature of the air or the feeling of your hair on your scalp. When you do it really around the head, the softening, it's almost like an amplified way of telling the whole body like, oh, settle. Because we have all these nerves in our face that when they're firing, tell the body, should I relax or should I be kind of alert and ready to go? So when you soften the face and soften the gaze, right? And it's also, if you look out farther than 20 feet, if you have like a view, also helps you to downregulate. So please, listeners, do all the softening that you can. And part of what I would add to what you said, Jay, is like, and in that softening, can you make room for forgiving yourself for not knowing better? for not knowing what to do or how to do it, or even that you know that you should do it. Because if you didn't grow up that way, how could you possibly know unless someone teaches you or role models it for you?
How could you possibly know? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it seems as if the latest iteration of your work then is psychedelics and medicine journeys.
It is.
What is something you wish people knew about that in general?
What I wish people knew more about psychedelic assisted psychotherapy or psychedelic journeys is that it won't lead to addiction. That's a really important thing. And the other piece around it is you can't possibly begin to imagine what those kinds of medicines do to break you through and break you out of the habit of being your survival self. It is, no one can tell you what it's like. You have to actually do it to really understand and experience your consciousness expanding, but more importantly, your heart really opening, and more towards yourself, the heart opening towards self than towards other people. So long as people feel safe with their facilitator, there's so much healing to be had in psychedelic assisted medicine, like psychedelic assisted journeys, 100%.
Well, I'm thinking back to the first question when we were talking about the years of living wild and close to the earth.
Yeah.
That I have experienced medicine journey and psychedelic assisted therapy, and my experience of it, and I hadn't really thought of it this way until talking with you, was it is like the most concentrated, profound experience of nature happening from inside out. I mean, I'm getting fist pumps and I'm getting bouncing on the ball. Yes, it's like somehow you can ingest the everythingness of the natural world, and it comes, and this is making me want to cry right now just thinking about it. Like what it took me years to get infused into my being through being out in the backcountry happened in hours.
And then, like it within the journey itself, which is anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, depending on your metabolism and your system. And then also importantly, in the 2 weeks after you do a psychedelic journey, your brain is more sensitive to your environment. So the integration and starting to create some new habits and really paying, and this is how I guide my clients, like paying attention to what you're consuming, right? Like I try to tell them to like get off of social media and don't watch the Bourne series where it's really super violent. Like watch something really easy, be really gentle with yourself, move.
Well, because you're soft.
Yeah. That's it.
You're soft.
That's it. You're soft. That's right.
More permeable.
Right. We don't want you to armor back up by doing all of the things that you normally do without paying any heed to the insights and the wisdom that came through the medicine journey that you were just on.
And when you're doing that with a client, are you also including the therapeutic touch and yeah.
So, I mean, so this is part of their preparation is I ask them about therapeutic touch. Most of the clients that I'm doing journeys with already are working with me anyway, individually. So touch is part of what we do. And consent is not universal. They might say yes before the journey, and then they get in the journey and I'm like touching them and I'm noticing that they're freezing up or there's something that isn't right. And then I will just remove my hand. I mean, of course I'm going to be asking, but the touch piece is, especially in the psychedelic sphere, is super grounding. I mean, you are not yourself for hours and hours and hours. And to have someone just kind of hold your hand and go, it's okay, I'm right here. Yep, you can lean into this scary place and you're not alone. That's a lot. That alone is hugely rewiring, especially for clients who have had a history of early trauma in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do that.
I'm like ready to fly to Denver right now because here's the thing, listener. I mean, I've been around long enough to know when somebody's the real deal, and I think I've got you pegged as the real deal, Maira. And I feel you in everything that you say, and that is the most important thing for me in terms of who do I want to spend my time with, but also who would I trust to hold me. Yeah. And so if you are listening, if someone's listening and they want to know more about how to work with you, how can they find more about that?
Yeah, so my website is called Somatic, Somatic Therapy, and then partners with an S as in Samuel at the end. You can just email info@somatictherapypartners.com and request to do a consultation. My personal branded website is not up yet, but I'm going to be moving away from doing one-to-one individual work, like not necessarily taking on, I mean, I will be taking on new clients, but I really want to focus my attention on being a medicine carrier. And working with clients in the psychedelic sphere. So I can always send you that information, but that's the easiest way to figure out if we might be a good fit to work together psychedelically or individually. Somatictherapypartners.com, and then just writing info@somatictherapypartners.com.
Fantastic. I hope people do reach out to you through this.
Me too. Thank you.
So I always end with what I'm starting to call, this is all so new. So I'm like, let's put a name to it. So the name that I put to this is the stay with yourself part of the podcast. And my question that I have for you as my guest is there a practice or a ritual that you do or that you teach? Because I'm imagining that anything you teach, you also do. Again, that's because you're the real deal.
Yeah.
Is there a practice or ritual that you do and teach that helps you stay with yourself or shift your experience of yourself in real time?
Yep, in real time. So this is a skill I teach to clients, is now just like habit. I do it without thinking. So the habit is called joy spotting in the body. Joy spotting in the body. And the idea is, and you can do it anytime, anywhere. You can do it at the end of the day when you review your day. And if you're going to do it that way, and then I'll give you a real life experience. If you're going to review your day at the end of the day, the question I want you to ask is like, where were things good or good enough in my day? Right? Like, oh, my boss gave me the thumbs up, or like I saw a really beautiful flower. Like it can be something really big, like some big event, right? Like someone gave you $1,000 that you weren't expecting, or it could be something really small, like, oh, that sunset's really beautiful. And the idea is you remember the lived experience that you had. So you remember the sunset, you remember the $1,000 that someone gave you. And then as you hold that memory in your mind, you then send your attention south into the body to notice what's happening differently. Right? And it's also training the brain, which we all know has a negativity bias. When you start doing this joy spotting, you are training your brain to look for what's right enough, what's good enough. So here's my example. I really like to drive fast, and I have a nice car. So when people drive slow, I can get immediately impatient and very judgy, and I'm behind the wheel, gripping the wheel, being like, you're going 45 and a 65.
I can't relate to this, but go on.
So I can really be like this. And so once I start realizing, and this is really for the listener, once you start realizing the cost of doing business, of being in judgment, in anger, in impatience, it's a high cost of doing business in the body, right? It literally is like, you might as well just take something that like you stick in your body and it drains all your energy out. Those kinds of experiences, while important, are meant to be short-lived. So when I notice myself getting into that impatience, the first thing that I do is I sit all the way back in my seat. I release my grip on my steering wheel because I'm trying to relax the body. And then I look around and I'm looking for anything that is pretty. Like it might be the sky, it might be the shape of a cloud, or I might be actively inside remembering the sweet interaction I had with my daughter the night before, or the fun conversation I had with my friend 2 days ago. And I'm then focusing my attention away from the thing that's getting me supercharged up. And I'm reliving by remembering this really good experience. And then the system can really settle. You can breathe better, shoulders go down. All of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm not in such a hurry. Like, what was I hurrying for in the first place?
You know what I noticed? The moment you talked about joy spotting and take your attention down, the thing I noticed is my pelvis opened. Like the base of my body just softened and was like, yeah, you don't need to be gripping right here.
That's right.
And yeah, it was a very specific, like right in my pelvic bowl, just the bowl got bigger.
Yes, that's right. And we want, especially as women, we want our pelvic bowls to be flowing. We want our whole body to be flowing. So when everything softens, right, everything gets to flow through the body better, and the body doesn't have to work as hard to maintain homeostasis or balance, right? So joy spotting is the skill I teach every single client. I sometimes teach it in the consult, and people notice an immediate difference when they're just like, oh, that does feel better. And usually if they don't notice, I'm like, did you notice you stopped crying when I just had you shift your attention to like the fun dinner that
you do sometimes have to be like, by the way, did you notice that you just took a giant breath? Or did you notice that your shoulders are now not higher than your forehead?
Exactly right. Yeah. So that's just what I do now. And it's never at the cost. I'm never trying to ignore things that are happening bad in the world, but it's a way I can stay true and close to who, like alignment of who I want to be. That's right. Versus being reactive and then pulling myself out of living my values on a daily basis. So joy spotting to me is like if there was only one skill that people learned how to do, it would be joy spotting from the body. Just reliving.
Fantastic. I love it. And it's like, and you've probably heard this said before, but it's like gratitude, but it's better in my mind because gratitude is something I think people mostly still think about.
Yes, it's all up here.
But joy, you don't think about joy. Nope. Joy is something you feel. So I love that you've called it joy spotting because it does anchor you immediately. Into sensation.
That's right.
Thank you for that. And I would say to the listener, if you haven't already done it, do it and then keep doing it. And you could even pair, wait for it, you could pair, hey, wait, I need to joy spot. Boom. Just like that.
Perfect.
Look, we could combine those two.
Yes, that's right.
Myra.
That's so good, Jay.
This has been really, really good. This is, to me, again, just a testament of speaking to someone who is embodied and regulated. We have never met before.
Nope.
And I felt more at ease because I can feel you feeling you, and then I feel me. I know it sounds silly, but it's real. And so thank you for showing up with the presence that you have and with the expertise that you have. It's been an absolute delight.
Thank you. It has been a delight to be here, and definitely we're going to be friends after this. So thank you.
I think so, especially now that I know you like to drive fast cars. I feel like we have something else we're going to talk about now. Me and my motorcycles and you and your cars.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're going to hang out after I push stop on the recording. But thank you as well, listener. I really hope that you got something you needed, and I suspect that maybe you did. And if you have someone in mind right now that you think, I think they might need this too, please share this with them. And the other thing I haven't said on recent podcasts, as this is kind of new in the beginning, if you have questions or specific topics that you want me to talk about, or you want me to find the people who can talk about it, reach out to me. You can DM me at Hey Wait with Jay on Instagram, or you can get to me through my website, jmoonfields.com, because the whole new experiment of this podcast isn't just to talk at you or to have you listen as an unengaged person somewhere else away, but like to have this be relational. And I want you to feel like we're in this together. So if you have questions, reach out to me. And before we go, I want you to remember that your insides matter and the right people will meet you there. So stay with yourself, and I'll see you next time.